I mean, we've got to go back to the earth. You know, the flute and the drum are instruments that go back thousands of years. I think they found in Germany a bone flute, 35,000 years old. And it's just taught me that you don't need all these other instruments. All you need is maybe the sound of the drum, the heartbeat.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Wellness 360. Whether this is your first time joining us or you've been with us on this journey for a while, thank you. We're honored to have you in this space as we come together for the last episode of the season. And each time we've gathered, we deepen our commitment to whole being wellness, physical, emotional, and spiritual. This season has been all about discovering new insights, reconnecting with ancient wisdom, and remembering the tools that are already within us. And here at Wellness 360, our goal is simple: to offer meaningful conversations, expand your perspectives, and introduce wellness practices that are both time-tested and cutting edge. Over the course of these last 4 seasons, this show has become a global circle featuring powerful voices from around the world. We've heard from pioneering medical professionals, celebrated healers, pet experts, and spiritual guides who've helped illuminate the many paths to healing and harmony. We explore truths that often get overlooked. We share stories that challenge the status quo, and we celebrate healing traditions, especially those rooted in culture, ancestry, and community. And if you're new here, just know your wellness journey is your own. Please take what resonates and do your own research before integrating anything new into your life. You hold the power to choose what supports your highest good. And if you're looking for one-on-one guidance or support, don't hesitate to reach out. Reach out at wellness360carmen@gmail.com. We're here to support you, to help you move forward with intention, clarity, and care, because wellness is not just a destination, it's a way of being. As we wrap things up, this particular episode feels like both a homecoming and a prayer. It's for anyone who believes that healing can come through sound, through stillness, through the honoring of spirit. Today, we welcome a woman whose flute carries the breath of her ancestors. She's an artist, a healer, a keeper of Indigenous tradition, and whose music doesn't just tells stories, it remembers them. Mignon Geli is a performing artist, flautist, songwriter, radio host, and cultural storyteller whose path began unexpectedly, and one might say through the divine spirit, in 2005, when her son gifted her a native-style wooden flute in the key of B minor. She had never played a wind instrument before, but something inside awakened. Her music began in solitude, playing by ear on the sacred nature trails of the Sierra foothills on Nisenan land, and soon this music grew into a lifelong calling to share flute medicine with the world. She performs across genres, blending traditional Indigenous melodies with contemporary sounds. Mignon's music has graced community gatherings, powwows, spiritual ceremonies, healing circles, and international collaborations that honor native languages and cultures. Her journey includes volunteering as a community radio host with a program called Indigenous Soul, as well as performing alongside Good Shield Aguilar and with women's multicultural drum groups, and releasing multiple albums on major streaming platforms. Her collaborations span from grassroots activism to renowned cultural institutions, always centering Indigenous healing and sovereignty through sound. With each breath into her flute, Mignon bridges the old and the new, spirit, song, remembrance, and renewal. Joining me today on Wellness 360 is a luminous soul and dedicated cultural bearer, Mignon Geli. Mignon, welcome to Wellness 360. It is an honor to have you on our season finale. Your music and your medicine, your story, it's truly a gift to be able to share this with all of our audiences. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Carmen. And I'll just start with a little flute music.
Please. is wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us today, Mignon. And again, welcome to Wellness 360.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Honored to be here.
Oh, the
Surprised that I was even invited.
Oh, well, I'm happy you accepted. So, and just for the record, I know that you said you were a little bit nervous, but when I asked you, what was the first thing that ran through your mind when I asked you to be a guest on Wellness 360 and the reason for doing that? Right? We're talking about healing in different modalities and different ways and just wanting to share that with people around the world. But what was the first thing that ran through your mind?
Well, I was excited at first and I said, gee, they really want me. And then I questioned why me. And then I felt, well, it's necessary because I remember one time when I was going to give up playing the flute, playing publicly. These good friends of mine who happened to be on my radio program, when I told the story why I thought I would stop playing the flute, they said, no, you can't do that. They said, you have a gift that needs to be shared. And so that's what I do. I share this gift that I have. Yes.
And I personally, for me, thank you. I'm glad that you didn't stop. And I'm grateful that they shared that sentiment with you, right? Because I think that most artists have their own gift, and to share it with the world is, I don't know that I agree with the word responsibility, but I feel like it's a calling to share it with the world. Obviously we all make our own choices, but that calling can be so strong and so deep, right, from within us. I think that to honor that is the right thing to do whenever possible. I do want to sort of start a little bit, at the beginning of, in your early life experiences, how did that shape your relationship with music, with the sounds that you create, or did it?
Well, I grew up in a family with musicians. I have 7 siblings, and 2 of my older brothers were multi-instrumentalists, songwriters, singer-songwriters, and an older sister that had a beautiful voice. And then I had younger sisters, one of which actually became a professional singer. And those were my influences. But growing up, my mother was a soprano in the choir at church. And my brothers, they naturally started playing instruments. We had an old upright piano in our living room. And they used to play. Both of my brothers played piano. And they played all kinds of music, all different genres, but mostly, oldies and jazz, Latin jazz. One of my brothers later played in several Latin bands, Latin jazz. So we grew up singing around the piano. My brothers could play any song we requested. And that's where I actually learned to play a little piano by ear, because I would just like so much what they had done. And they had maybe a little more formal training, and I was just the copycat. So I played the piano by ear, songs like Heart and Soul, all those oldies that we play with those certain chords. For example, what's that song? Angel Baby.
Oh, sure.
You remember that? So I can play Angel Baby and sing on the piano. Not that I have a great voice, but we'd all sing together and we would harmonize. So we had enough sisters, and of course with my 2 brothers, we had enough musicians in the house to jam.
And when your son gifted you the flute, and you hadn't ever played it before, how did that evolve into your identity as a healing artist, using music to heal? What was the I mean, you've given us your background, but how did that happen to go into the healing aspect of
Well,
flute medicine?
unexpectedly, of course, because when he gifted me with the flute, I pretty much said to him, "What do you want me to do with this?" And then he says, "Oh, here, it's simple. Just do this and do that." And just let I go, "Oh, okay." So I did. And then trying to impress him, I would, play it a little bit. And like I said, I would play by ear. And my little experience with the piano, and later on, I did take guitar lessons at San Francisco State. I just learned to play by ear,
Right.
and I would take it with me hiking, and I would go with a group of people who would enjoy whatever flute music I was playing. And not that I was great, I was just goofing around playing the flute and trying to sound out songs that I remembered, especially the songs that my brothers used to play. And that's where they just really loved what they were hearing as I played the flute. And, when you go out into nature, and I live in the foothills, like I mentioned, just playing amongst the trees and the sky and the rivers and all living things, it's just soothing. Everybody, all living things seem to enjoy it. So I think it was just natural that it became a healing kind of thing, because people would say to me, they would invite me to play at, maybe funerals or weddings even. And there was something about the music, but it especially hit me that my music was touching and healing in a way, because Richard Oakes' wife, I don't know if you know who Richard Oakes is, but he was one of the leaders of the Alcatraz occupation.
Okay.
So we celebrated the 40th anniversary of the Alcatraz occupation up here in Georgetown, up here in the foothills.
Sure.
And Anna Oakes was present with her daughter, and she became ill not too long after. She was always complaining about her stomach, and so a few months later, I guess she had heard me at this event, and I just played for about 10 minutes, and they didn't know that I even played flute. But anyway, when she was very ill, she asked me to come to the house, which they live in Santa Rosa. So I drove all the way to Santa Rosa, and she got out of bed, and they rolled her out in her wheelchair. She got dressed up, rolled her out in her wheelchair, and she just wanted me to play flute. So I played the flute, and it made her happy. And she wanted to go back to sleep. I go, okay. But also, when I visited Peru and played flute, one of the hotels that we stayed at, the hotel owner approached me and asked me to help her start a healing center in her town, her hometown of Tambobamba, up there in the Andes somewhere, and where her family owned some land. And I wasn't selling myself as a healer. I was just playing the flute. So, but she specifically wanted me to help her start a healing center. So I knew that healing was helping her and whoever else heard it. And so I went to Tambabamba and saw the land, beautiful. And I knew that if we did start a healing center, it's not me that is necessarily going to heal anybody. I felt that it was the land that was going to heal the people, that they had enough land where we could grow vegetables and crops and help the entire community and, help each other, and the people who were into healing and wanted to go somewhere for healing, come out here to Tambabamba and help work the land and give to the people out there. And that is healing.
Correct. And thank you for saying that, because I want to share with our listeners and our viewers, a lot of times when we are talking about healing, there's different definitions. Healing someone's heart and making them happy is healing.
Mm-hmm.
Healing, bringing people together to work together, to collaborate, to exist together is healing. So we're not necessarily talking about, I mean, there are scientific applications of healing with sound.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a
Mm-hmm.
firm believer in that. I'm a part of
Mm-hmm.
that world. But what
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about here, you and I, is this type of healing, your heart, your soul, your spirit. And so I do want to make that, that clarification,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to be, misleading, but I also want to help people understand how the word medicine is used in
Mm-hmm.
their cultures, how
Mm-hmm.
the word healing is interpreted and used in other parts of the world, that these are collective conversations. So thank you for being a part of this and giving us some examples of what you've been doing. I know when you were talking about this, it brought this question to my mind. This community involvement that you've had, the collective power of sound, of, in this case, music. What else has that taught you about the power of this type of healing?
That's a tough question. I think it's tough. But anyway, it just taught me that there's a need for this kind of music, and there's a need for more of this indigenous, grassroots kind of healing. I'm not talking about, hip hop and hard rock and punk rock. I mean, we've got to go back to the earth. The flute and the drum are instruments that go back thousands of years. I think they found in Germany a bone flute, 35,000 years old. And it's just taught me that you don't need all these other instruments. All you need is maybe the sound of the drum, the heartbeat. And I noticed that, at many events, because as you know, I organize events at the Indigenous Peoples Village. And I said, how do we attract people to come to our village? The huge festival, but what do we do to attract people to the village? And it's the drum. You can just hear the drum. It brings people in. It's a calling. And then you weave in the flute and the rattles and maybe some vocables, and that's all you need. And that's what I've learned, that, you don't need all these other things. You can play flute solo and people will appreciate it. I don't always have to have the drum or the rattle or someone singing. And I guess that's what I learned, the power of the flute.
Yeah. No, and I love this, because that's sort of along the lines of, I think you hit it right, the nail on the head. It's modern society, modern music. Of course, everything has its place as far as I'm concerned when it comes to music. But we're all connected to the root. And like you said, it's the drum, the flute, vocals. It's what everyone had at one point. Every culture on every continent. That is
Exactly.
that commonality that we all have. I'm always searching personally. I love finding things that we all have in common. I'm always searching for the things that bind us together versus the things that divide us. There's enough of that out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if, like you said, if we're able to return to our indigenous musical roots, there's something inherently, it's like our heartbeat. I really don't know how else to describe it. I'm not an expert in this topic. I just speak from the heart. I love speaking to people like yourself, who I learn from you every time we have conversations, and I learn from others. That's what I feel is part of what we're doing here on Wellness 360, and then we share it. Right? That's the goal. It's pretty simple. I know
Well,
that
music is the universal language,
exactly. It's not
and
rocket
everyone can relate.
exactly. And usually music brings people together.
Exactly. And that's the other thing I learned, that music will bring people in unity.
Right. And we definitely need more of that. I
We
feel.
do. We do.
Now you've gone to, as you already mentioned, you've gone to places outside of California, and you've traveled internationally. What are some of the, if you could share with us, maybe like what you mentioned, right? Being in, was it Peru, right?
See?
Um,
Yes.
maybe other places that you've gone to that you have made a connection that was so unexpected. Maybe, I don't know where else you've traveled to, but was there some other trip that music took you there and then music brought this surprising, wonderful, magical connection? How did that go?
Well, Peru, I've been to Europe, and I remember playing in a vacated castle
Oh,
in Freiburg, I think it was.
uh-huh.
And it was just wonderful to just be able to play the flute accompanied by good shield on the drum. And it was just beautiful, just the sound echoing throughout these walls. And in Mexico, Tapaslan, I think that's how you say it. Went to the mountains up there. We climbed up the mountains, and I remember Bear Fox and I shared a song up there with her vocals and my flute, and it
Oh,
was just touching. I mean, we were on top of the mountain. It was a rainy day, and the music just floated. I mean,
right.
these are the moments that you cherish
Sure.
because you're not only playing it for yourself, but it's for the land and all living things, for Mother Earth, Father Sky. And that's why when I play outdoors and maybe I don't have an audience, I said, no, or I do have an audience. It's all these things out there. That's who I'm playing for. It's not necessarily for these human beings, right?
And I love what I also learned about, you know, again, for me, this is my interpretation, but I also feel like when we do this, like you said, you're not necessarily always playing to an audience of humans, but I feel like that's also our connection to our ancestors, that we're playing for them, that
Exactly.
we're honoring them because they are living through our music.
Hmm.
I feel like that connection, that string, if you will, of musical notes that binds us all together is, in my opinion and my viewpoint, is everlasting and limitless.
Limitless. Good word. Infinity.
Infinity, even better. um, Mignon, I know that these conversations, I hope that a lot of young people will get to watch this. That's always my hope. And that we make them, just us. It's just two women having a conversation, but
Hmm.
that it might, pardon the pun, resonate with anyone, any young person, any person,
Hmm.
any part of the world. We're
Hmm.
broadcasting now to
Hmm.
15 different countries. And
Hmm.
if some of this, even if it's one sentence that resonates with someone and, oh, gives them an idea to maybe play more of their
Hmm.
own
Hmm.
music that they maybe forgot from their
Hmm.
ancestors or their grandparents or their great grandparents. I would love for you to spend a little bit of time also talking about your music. You have albums out there. Can you tell us about like your latest album or your latest few albums? Where do people get your music?
Well, right now, you get it on all the streaming platforms such as Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon, iTunes, YouTube. And the first solo album I did was in 2017. At least that's when it was released, and it was called Under a Buffalo Sun. And that's because of the volunteer work I do with the Buffalo Field Campaign, which is a nonprofit organization based out of West Yellowstone. And its mission is to protect the last of the wild, free roaming buffalo in Yellowstone. Many people don't know that the buffalo is our national mammal. So, and I've been out there several times. And so through Good Shield, I became one of the traveling musicians on their West Coast road shows. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I was inspired to do just a flute and drum album. Mm-hmm. And I have two poets on the album, and that would be John Trudell with Buffalo Wild. That's his poem. And also an Ohlone, a poet named Stephen Meadows. And his poem is Buffalo on the West Coast Edge. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it. Yeah. But anyway,
I'll look it up. That's
two poets, and I just do the background music. Sure. So that's one of the albums, and that was released in 2017, and it's available. If you go to buffalofieldcampaign.org, you can find it in their merchandise section and purchase it through them. But it's also available on all the streaming platforms. The other album I did with Mohawk singer-songwriter Bear Fox. The name of that album is Arilosala. So it was a collaboration where we wanted to combine flute and her singing in Mohawk. And it was especially dedicated to the Akwesasne Freedom School, which is an immersion school. And part of the proceeds go to the Akwesasne Freedom School. So she sings and I play flute. That was released in, I think, 2020. And then in 2022, I released Indigenous Influences. And I came up with Indigenous Influences because it was Indigenous music that influenced me, as well as the flute influencing me and me influencing everybody else with my influences. So it goes both ways, but it was definitely inspired by all the indigenous music that I have been exposed to in my travels, to the Mohawk Nation, to, the Lakota Nation, as well as all the California nations here. And so then decided to go ahead with volume 2, which again, influenced by all the indigenous music. And then I did volume 3, which has less songs, but I think in the last volume 3, I kept it more flute and drum, more traditional, with kind of upbeat songs, but as well as a kind of traditional song and kind of healing, like We Rise in Peace, Native Heart. I'm trying to remember the songs on that. Counting My Blessings, Healing Soul Wounds. And that's kind of a nice album to listen to if you're just into listening. But the other albums are more upbeat, and I have some hip hop beats added to it, and it's to be more uplifting, because healing also has to lift us up. And if some of the music can, get them off dancing, and I love a good drum beat, and I love the bass, and I love to play music to that, because like I said, when I grew up, I listened to soul music, the Motown sound, rock, light rock, and all these other sounds. And I think that's reflected in my music.
Mignon, I love the fact that you are bridging not just genres, but cultures. Mm-hmm. And you're doing this in a way of like a weaver, where you're weaving these sounds and these notes together in a new way that's uniquely you. And
Hmm.
thank you for doing that, because I feel like that's part of how we express ourselves, how we connect with other people. I'm going to go full circle. At the beginning, we talked about, how do we bring people together?
Hmm. Exactly.
You're doing all of this, and that is part of healing.
It
I
is.
I really hope that people who've maybe never thought of this concept before,
Hmm.
maybe after listening to our conversation and tuning in, maybe it'll spark an idea. Just a new way to look at things, that bringing different elements together of our humanity,
Hmm.
culture, foods, the fusion of these things
Hmm.
is a good thing.
And I just wanted to mention that my music is played internationally,
Yes.
and
That's where I was going with this.
and yeah, and when I looked at my Spotify, not Spotify, but yeah, I guess my Spotify trends and analytics,
Right.
it allows me to see where my music is being played or how many times it's being streamed. But I noticed that age wise, it ranges from 28 to 59,
Yes.
with the bulk of the listeners or people streaming would be 34 to 44,
Uh-huh.
somewhere around that group.
Sure. Sure.
But the bulk of the listeners are women,
Right.
maybe two-thirds, and a third male. But I think the males are starting to catch up.
Right.
Uh, and I don't know if maybe, women just like flute music more than men,
It could be.
but it's reaching them. It's
Exactly.
reaching them.
Well, and again, I want to go to this other part of this conversation of blending. You are using modern technology
Hmm.
to help you share your ancestral music, your blending of these different genres, your expression of music. I think you are, and this is why I think we connected. I feel a very strong connection. I've met you in person. We've had conversations on the phone, but I feel like you are the epitome of what I am trying to share with others as well, is that there's room for technology, there's room for ancient traditions, there's
Hmm.
room for all of it.
There is.
I just I struggle with the divisiveness that is
Hmm.
happening. And so I only know what I can do. And
Hmm.
this is part of it. And thank you for helping me do this, because I think, you know, music and bringing people together doesn't have an age limit,
Hmm.
right? It's not only young people that can do this. It's not only older people that can do that. It's all of us together who are willing to
Hmm.
do a little piece. Now, I know I'm so respectful of your time, and I'm so grateful that you're here with us. But before we wrap it up, I'm wondering if you could maybe share with us maybe your last sort of message that you would like to share for all of our viewers from around the world, that are tuning in right now, that
Hmm.
are, downloading your music. Maybe something that you would just a final message from Mignon.
Yeah, I guess my message is, if you especially like the sound of the flute, don't be afraid to try it. The native flute only has 6 holes, and as long as you have some breath, it's easy to play. So, you know, give it a try. I know there are a lot of people out there who just think they cannot play music, but believe me, I've only been playing the last few years. And I think it's something everyone should try. The and you can play anything you want. Don't let anyone tell you that you have to play it this way or that way. That you it's only for a ceremony, and it's not. Um, you could play it the way you want, and if people like it, cool. If they don't have to listen, right? And you can't please everybody,
Exactly.
but follow your passion. That's important, to follow your passion. You know, give it a try. And many people come up to me and they're just amazed and they wonder why I play the flute the way I do, because they think that they've never heard anyone play the flute like me, because like Carmen said, I play different genres, and I can do that, but that's because of my musical background, because I do have a little musical background, not just with the flute, with the wind instrument. But yeah, that's important message to me, is to play your heart out. If it brings people together, all the better. And just enjoy it. Enjoy life. If you're depressed and wondering what you want to do, or just bring out the flute and give it a try.
I love that. Thank you. I think we're just going to end on that note. No pun intended
Okay.
again. But thank you. Thank you for your time. Do you mind? I'm going to just sort of walk us out, but if you don't mind, just maybe also accompanying us with a little music on the way out. I'd be honored if you would do that. I appreciate you so much, Mignon.